Tom Cotton reacts to the drone strike on the terrorist Soleimani. Also, we have Jan Morgan surviving a drive-by shooting at her place of work. We'll talk to her. Also, Senator Gary Stubblefield on the refugees. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson has signaled he wants to accept. We'll talk to Senator Gary Stubblefield. And it's primary season. We'll introduce you to one candidate out of State House District 22. This is Conduit News Hour. I'm Paul Harrell. So in the news today, Senator Tom Cotton has responded to the Arkansas Democrat Gazette's Frank Lockwood over the killing of Qasem Soleimani. This, of course, has sent the left into an absolute tailspin. Matter of fact, it's so ridiculous. You got to see this. It's so ridiculous that actor George Lopez, over the weekend, Iran decided to say, $80 million for the head, for the life, for the assassination of President Donald Trump. We'll give you $80 million. And actor, former late-night talk show host, comedian George Lopez essentially said that he'll do it for half. He'll do it for half. Iranian authorities have put a bounty on American President Donald Trump's head during the televised funeral of General Qasem Soleimani after he was assassinated last week, said Chicano world star to Instagram. What are your thoughts? And George Lopez replies, we'll do it for half. So back to Senator Tom Cotton. Anyway, the left's in a complete meltdown over this. There was one of those really great memes where Trump is kind of like a magician, and it's like, for my next trick, now I'll make the Democrats defend Iran. And it's kind of a long list. It's not just Iran. They've defended MS-13. They've defended all kinds of things just because President Trump is on one side of the issue. They feel they have to take the opposite because they hate this man personally so much they can't stand it. Here's what Senator Tom Cotton is quoted as saying, quote, Qasem Soleimani was an operational commander in a field of battle where American troops were lawfully present and possessed an inherent right of self-defense. If he didn't want to get himself killed, he shouldn't have been in Iraq plotting the death of American troops. That's exactly right. Moving on, we have another quote here. For more than 20 years, he's been killing Americans by the hundreds or even the thousands, and he has spent every day plotting how to kill more Americans. So it's just retribution for all those Americans who died by his hands and critical to preventing the death of more Americans. So what do you think? I personally think that this was a breath of fresh air. Instead, in the past, Americans have been fighting proxy wars. In the recent past, we've just been fighting proxy wars in the Middle East, and essentially what happens is there's no direct country-to-country conflicts, and it's all. I mean, for example, there are many people that believe that if Hillary Clinton would have beaten Donald Trump, she didn't. Thank goodness, that we would be in the middle of a giant proxy war against Russia in Syria. And somewhat, it took a while for that situation to diffuse anyway. And this is just kind of how we do things now, but not with this president, apparently. This is a stark shift, a very stark shift from, the foreign policy of the past. The president upping the stakes, saying, listen, if the country of Iran is going to plot against Americans and try to take American lives, it's very much this foreign policy that I've been an advocate for a long time. Put the bombs on the plane. If you're interfering in our interests, we're going to bomb you back to the Stone Age, and then we're going to come back home. A lot of people are talking about war with Iran. I know a lot of folks on Instagram that I follow that are more comedians. But they're also leftist a little bit. And they're all talking about World War III. World War III was trending, by the way, last week because everybody thought they were trying to make Trump look like he didn't know what he was doing. They all assume, by the way, that the killing of Soleimani was just shooting from the hip. None of them are willing to give the president the benefit of the doubt at all that there was another plan after that this is part of a longer series of plans. Now the country of Iran is destabilized. Now the people are going to have even more of an ally in the United States when it comes to trying to, I would presume, some sort of democratic overthrow of the regime at some point in the future. We don't know. It's also a very fluid situation. Iran says it may attack back, but then you have the president saying, if you do, we're going to attack 52 sites, and that's for each of the 52 Americans that you took hostage years and years and years ago, which is something that culture in the Middle East, I've been told, understands. They understand strength. They don't understand weakness. So, we're going to keep following this. But to my point on, people saying that this is going to we're going to get involved in another foreign war. I'm not so sure. Let me be clear. I don't want to be in another foreign war. I think most Americans don't want to be. The president says he doesn't want these endless wars. But by directly going after the top general of Iran and killing him, I think he has certainly demonstrated what the cost of war is supposed to be. So you have a reason to either end it or reevaluate your commitment to it. Here is Mike Pompeo, Fox News. This is from Breitbart. Pompeo to Fox News' Wallace. Endless wars are the direct result of weakness. Trump will never let that happen. So the fact is, fighting the proxy war, the style that we've been fighting for a long time, my question would be, is that a sign of weakness? And is what the president did a sign of strength? I definitely think it's a sign of strength. As a matter of fact, I think going directly after Soleimani, even though there may be some attacks and Iran may attempt to do something, and then I feel like we're going to just, I feel like it's going to be, even the president said it may be disproportionate. If you attack back, we're going to attack in a disproportionate way. When the American military is going to come at you, and admittingly, they're saying this is going to be disproportionate from what you did to us, you better watch out. I think this actually may help end the endless conflicts, because I don't think people are going to want to mess with us. And I don't think we're going to be fighting these proxy wars anymore. This is what Pompeo said. Chris Wallace asked, is the president pulling out of endless wars in the Middle East, or with his action this week, did he take a big step back in? Let me be clear. There's no secret at all, that there are people who have wanted a war with Iran and they want to stay in the Middle East forever. There's no secret that that's the case. And the only reason, there's ample evidence of that. I've talked to multiple veterans. I've talked to multiple soldiers for a very long time that will tell you about the rules of engagement, how they're not allowed to, engage the enemy unless the enemy does specific things of aggression. That's not how you fight a war. War is about killing the enemy because you're convinced you have the moral high ground. War is about killing the enemy as efficiently as possible. Now, I'm not a soldier, but I feel like that's just kind of self-explanatory, right? And so to the point of that, we really weren't ever fighting to win. It's been the biggest complaint because Americans for a long time been like, hang on, we're the greatest military in the world. Why don't we just win the war and leave? I think the killing of Soleimani by the president in this drone strike, when he's exposed as collaborating with the saboteurs in Iraq, I think this is an effort to fight to win. And it's something that I think will, as long as we don't get in some sort of quagmire like Iraq, like Afghanistan, where we're talking about Iran and the security forces in Iran 20 years from now, okay, as long as that doesn't happen, and I don't think it will, if you allow our soldiers and our military to protect American interests totally when it's necessary. Again, bomb them back to the Stone Age and come home when it's justified, when it's necessary, and also don't be baited into conflicts and everything else. He said, Pompeo said, endless wars are a direct result of weakness, and President Trump will never let that happen. We're going to get our facilities as hardened as we can possibly get them to defend against what Iran may potentially do. But make no mistake, America's mission is to have our footprint in the Middle East reduced while still keeping America safe from rogue regimes like the Islamic Republic of Iran and from terrorist activity broadly throughout the region. So, that's interesting. You have the left saying it's going to be another war. You have some people on the right who are very concerned because they don't want these endless wars. I mean, listen, getting involved in another war in the Middle East specifically, when we still haven't addressed our southern border, there's a legitimate point to be made there. There's no question about it. However, the other question is, how big of a threat is Iran? And it doesn't even appear like they're that much of a threat. But if they're going to mess with us, if they're going to coordinate and attack and raid our embassy and kill Americans, and Soleimani is responsible, has wounded and killed hundreds of Americans, and we have an opportunity to take him out, I mean, that's a no-brainer. That's really not even a question. And the real question we should all be asking is, how come previous administrations haven't done what the president just did? That is the question on my mind today. We're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be back here in just a moment.
Are you tired of having to fight the crowds at mega stores just to save money grocery shopping? Well, no more. Bill's Cost Plus is the new way for you to save big. Bill's is still your meat store with the same quality certified Angus beef you've come to expect with Bill's 6 picks for just $24. And Bill's carries a full variety of national brands with everything you need. The only difference is you're saving more than ever. Visit BillsCostPlus.com. Follow them on Facebook and Twitter. Bill's Cost Plus now open in all 3 Jonesboro locations.
All right, folks. Hey, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. I found this headline the other day, and it was very disturbing. The Sentinel Record drive-by shooting at the gun cave nearly strikes owner and husband Friday. Those of you who have been watching or listening to Conduit News for a while, you know that the name of that business, and that, of course, is Jan Morgan's business. And we have Jan on the line right now. Jan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Paul. How are you?
Doing well. I'm so glad that you're okay. I understand that this incident, I mean, the bullet almost hit you while you were in bed. Is that correct?
One of the bullets landed 5 inches from my head on the headboard of the bed where I was sleeping. Yes. There was a barrage of bullets that struck the building and the bedroom area. We have an apartment in this facility. We stay here a lot. We have several residences, but we stay here a lot because we are doing some renovations on the facility. So, and our cars were parked out front, and it was not your typical drive-by shooting. Happened at 1:30 in the morning. We were both just getting into bed after doing some work here, and all of a sudden, barrage of bullets rings out. They're pinging on the walls all around us in the bedroom area. And there are several things that make this case really unusual, Paul. Number one, they didn't drive by the building and shoot up the front of the building, which is what normally happens in a drive-by shooting. They drove past the building, then stopped and shot back onto the right side of the building on the second floor where we were sleeping.
Gosh.
Yeah. So that was the first thing that struck police, that this wasn't your standard drive-by shooting. The second thing was, when they got here, they started searching for the casings out on the road and found the casings and determined that the round was a .357 SIG. And I don't want your viewers to mistake that with a .357 Magnum, like you shoot in a revolver. A .357 SIG round is a highly unusual, high-velocity round that was designed for federal law enforcement authorities. Okay, so it's a very expensive round, very rare, and that was another eyebrow-raising piece of evidence that they found at the scene. They found 4 or 5 casings. Those have been sent to the state crime lab. They're running some tests on those to see if they can pull some prints. And then they found one of the bullets. Of course, it was in the back of the headboard of my bed. So, anyway, and it turns out that a neighbor was also awake when the rounds started being fired at our facility, and he ran to the window and he actually saw there was a pause in the barrage of gunfire at our facility. He looked out the window and actually saw the person fire the last round. at our building, and he got an exact vehicle description and gave that to authorities. So they're working on that as well.
Do you have the latest from the authorities? I mean, obviously, I'm sure, Jan, that you've been in contact with them, quite frequently, because you want to know, you want to get to the bottom of this, right? This bullet, and we showed it on the screen. I mean, these photos. I mean, this almost took your life.
Right, and whoever did this, Paul, is evil and capable of murder, and the fact that they're still out there is very disturbing. Of course, we know that there is evil all around us in the world, and that those kinds of people are walking around. But to know they're walking around in your area free is and if they did it to me, that they will do it again to someone else. So, it's my hope that they apprehend the person responsible. A person's responsible. Whoever shot at the building was not the driver. This person was the passenger. So, there's more information than has appeared in the paper. I know more information. Police know more information than they're telling me. But I can tell you that because of the circumstances, they're not viewing this as a standard drive-by shooting. There have only been 2 drive-by shootings in the Hot Springs area over the past year. Mine was one of them, and they said, yours is not a standard drive-by shooting. That's why the FBI is involved now, as well as Arkansas State Police, Hot Springs City Special Operations Unit, as well as the Garland County Sheriff's Department Criminal Investigation Division.
I mean, obviously, we're talking with Jan Morgan, who survived a drive-by shooting at her place of business, the Gun Cave. Do you know anything about a motive? Do you have a good idea? Obviously, Jan, people know who you are. They know that you have, strong political opinions, very conservative ones. You're also, one of the most pro Second Amendment people that I know. And you post a lot on social media. Do you think that that may be why you were targeted?
Well, the first thing police asked me was, what have you said lately? Who have you ticked off? and I haven't had any death threats, which is highly unusual because I've gotten death threats over the past 10 years because of what I do politically. And as you know, during the governor's race, police actually, tracked down one of the threats to a guy in Washington State. And knocked on his door, literally. So the thing is, I had not had any death threats within the past month, and had not had any personal encounters with anyone as well, not at my range, not in my everyday life. So this was just an out of the blue thing. Now, could it have been just some gangbangers driving around, at 1:30 in the morning and passing the building and saying, hey, that was a gun range, let's shoot at it? Sure. I'm hoping that's what it was. I don't believe so because of the particular round that was used. It's just a very rare round. And I can tell you that police are also working on tracking down the particular ammunition, where it was sold from, and to see if they can find out who purchased it. But because it's a law enforcement round, I've owned this gun range for 7 years, and I can maybe count on 3 fingers the number of times anyone has come in and actually shot a .357 SIG.
So, that's got to have piqued law enforcement's interest even more, because they probably want to know how their ammunition got out, into the public, right?
Right. And then, no, you can buy it. That's not law enforcement's not the only person. If I wanted to go buy 357 SIG rounds, I would, but I don't have any desire for a firearm that shoots that round because it's very expensive. It's a high velocity round. It was designed for law enforcement, and it was the choice for federal law enforcement officers for a while, not so much anymore. I do know that their investigation is starting in Little Rock and moving in. Okay. It's not just Hot Springs. I do know that, and I can tell you that much. What does that mean? I'm not sure. That's just what they told me. But the only thing I had posted on social media that generated a lot of controversy, and in fact, the response to it went viral, was about the refugee situation. that our governor has decided to, and announced during Christmas, that he was going to accept refugees from Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, some of those places. He announced that right at Christmas. Nobody was really paying attention to it. I picked up on it and made a big deal out of it because it's a big deal to me. We already know what kind of what results happen in other states that have accepted these refugees. And I didn't think it was from a violent crime standpoint, I didn't think it was something that Arkansas needed to do. And from a fiscal standpoint, I disagree with the idea. And in fact, Governor Hutchinson in 2015 had the opposite opinion about accepting refugees into our state. And suddenly there was a reversal in his position on this. And I don't like it. Arkansas, as you know, we're one of the most heavily taxed people in America. We're among the most poor by income, but 26% of our children are living above the poverty level, I forgot the percentage of adults living in the poverty level. We are cutting services to senior citizens by $2.5 million. We're cutting services that impact Arkansans who are disabled and elderly. We are not in a position to be taking on refugees from a financial standpoint. And so I spoke out against it, and I asked for our legislature to do the same kind of investigation into the governor's decision that the legislature is doing in Tennessee over their governor's decision to accept refugees. Senator Trent Garner and Senator Stubblefield picked up on that. They immediately announced that they were calling for an investigation. That hearing is going to take place on the 13th of this month in Little Rock. And within 24 hours of that announcement, my place gets shot up. Now, I'm not meaning to imply that it has anything to do with that. I'm just telling you that when police said, "What have you talked about or posted lately on social media?" And I said, "That's it." And it created that post went viral. People were irate. They were livid. The response to my post was just over the top. I mean, thousands upon thousands of people just really upset about it in Arkansas. Yeah. So I don't know if it's related. It could have been actually people that are from the refugee community already here in the Hot Springs area or in Arkansas, because we accepted 54 of these refugees last year. Or it could be something else. But right now, police they're telling me just enough to let me know that they're staying on top of it. But all the details, I'm just looking forward to the phone call from them saying, "We've got our guy."
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And on the Syrian refugee front, and again, we're talking with Jan Morgan. Well, I say Syrian. So I got a message from the governor's office saying that no Syrian refugees are located here, but then they reference Afghanistan and Iraq. Like that's much better.
Right.
And,
exactly.
But there's a headline up on, let's see, this is the Daily Caller. It lists the Republican governors, that are, have signaled to the Trump administration that they want to do this. And then it also quotes Tucker Carlson saying that we've already got 20 million illegal immigrants living here. The last thing many struggling communities need is more low-skilled migrants who may be great people but need a lot. They stress the schools, they stress the social programs while not fully integrating. That's just true, and anybody who lives in a community where it has happened will tell you that it is true. As with illegal immigration, the long-term agenda of refugee settlement is to bring in future Democrat voters, obviously. I mean, that part aside, Jan, the integration aspect of it is something that, it's almost like you can't talk about that because it's not politically correct. But in these areas where it happens, there is very little integration.
Right. And these people, very few actually choose to assimilate. And statistically, most of the children of these refugees end up on government entitlement programs, even though some of the refugees do get jobs. Now, the governor is claiming 100%. I would like to see the tracking on that. Number one. Number two, the governor has been disingenuous in his information that he put out in writing regarding this issue. He tries to he tries to put this on President Trump. He said, we're just complying with the president's, I can't remember his exact wording, but he wants to hide behind President Trump on this. And President Trump, on the contrary, has done more to fight against bringing refugees into this country, accepting refugees into this country than any president. And the president gave every governor an out on this. All our governor had to say is our communities are not prepared to handle this. We've taken in more than our share during the Obama administration, and we're just not going to do that. And that would have been perfectly fine with the president. So putting this off on President Trump as if, we've got these refugees and the president's pushing governors to accept them is just not true. Also, Governor Hutchinson claimed in his release that this organization, Canopy, that is responsible for helping these people assimilate and get the services that they need. He said, we've had a long, history of working with this organization. That is not true. Canopy's first entered Arkansas in January of 2016. I don't call 3 years a long history with an organization. I would like to see some tracking, not only from a physical standpoint of where are these people? Because once they are here, they can move around. They don't have to stay in the county where they go. Number one. Number two, I would like some financial tracking. I want to know how much money is coming in from the federal government to help these people assimilate. And I want a direct tracking and accounting of that money. How much of that's going to administrative costs and Canopy? Where exactly is all that funding going? And how much of the tab is the state of Arkansas and our taxpayers having to pick up to support these people? I want to see some hard numbers. And right now, we don't have that. And when I ask legislators, they don't have it. And when I ask legislators if they knew this was coming, we have yet to find any that do.
And it obviously is a politically sensitive issue, Jen. I mean, why else announce this on Christmas Eve? It got less media coverage and less people found out about it, I think.
Right. And I urge people to go to Senator Trent Garner, who has normally been a supporter of the governor. We all know that Senator Garner is pretty tight with the governor, and he stood with him on many issues. But as of last year, the senator started really making a difference in the votes that he was making and started voting a lot more conservative, which I appreciate, fiscally conservative. He was voting the right way on tax issues. And he also, to stand up, now Senator Stubblefield is known to bow up against the governor on issues that he felt were wrong in his people. But for Senator Garner to do that, and if people will go to his Facebook page and look at the exact questions that he brought up that he has for the governor on this issue, I was appreciative that he took the bold stance he did, he and Senator Stubblefield, and that they're calling for an investigation and want some questions answered.
And matter of fact, Jan, we're going to be talking with Senator Gary Stubblefield coming up here in a few minutes. And so we're excited to ask him about, what are his questions? What does he see this committee meeting, trying to accomplish? And it is a developing story. And I think, let me ask you this, Jan, if this were up to a vote of the people, refugees up or down, what do you think the people would decide?
Well, based on what I've seen on my Facebook page in response to it, it's an overwhelming no. We don't want these people. We've already got a problem with illegal aliens in our state, which I understand refugees are not illegals. Right. Still, they are people who are in our state who are a financial burden on our system, and it is a system that is already overwhelmed. And until we start taking care of our Kansans, and my position is our legislators and our governor should be saying Arkansas first. And when all of our citizens are living above the poverty rate and our children are getting the education that they need, and we're at the top in education instead of the bottom, and when our poverty rate has dropped, when Arkansas is in great shape, and then if our governor wants to look at the possibility of refugees, I think people might be a little more open to it. But you got too many people here going through tough times to be accepting of the idea of taking in people who are going to move to the front of the handout lines who aren't American citizens, and secondly, are not Arkansans.
Jan Morgan, I'm so glad that you're safe. I'm so sorry that this drive-by shooting happened. I hope and pray that we get to the bottom of this, and I'd love to have you on again soon for an update. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul.
All righty. Folks, back in a moment.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate one time or monthly. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. As promised, on the line we have Senator Gary Stubblefield is back with us. Gary, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. How are you?
Well, I'm good. Happy New Year to you, Paul.
Okay, so Christmas Eve or Christmas Eve, we had the news. It broke. Governor Hutchinson signaled to the Trump administration that we would take refugees this year. This was an option, obviously, that Trump gave all the governors. There's a lot of Republican governors that have done this, more than I would think, and they've taken some heat for it, but it's caused some alarm out in the public as well as in the legislature. I know you guys are asking questions, and you're planning to do a meeting in the upcoming days. What can you tell us about this situation, sir?
Okay. I'm called a meeting. It'll be on the 13th. It'll be a week from today at 9 o'clock in Big Mac. I spoke to the governor's staff last night. We originally had the meeting scheduled for 10. He had another appointment somewhere, so we rescheduled it till 9 o'clock, and the governor will be there to answer questions at 9 o'clock in Big Mac a week from today.
Wow, so that's news. So Governor Hutchinson plans on being there to answer your questions and the questions of the committee and other legislators. Well, that's good. I mean, hopefully we can get to the bottom of this, because I think a lot of people are concerned that there's a safety aspect here.
Well, let me tell you, when I read the executive order that President Trump sent out, and in that order, he gave the governors an option to opt out of this thing should they decide to do that. And I really think that he expected at least the Republican governors, those 17 Republican governors, to opt out of taking refugees. And it was kind of shocking to me. And anyway, Paul, and the governor he did an interview. I don't know if you heard it or not, the other day on Dave Ellsworth.
Yes.
And he talked about the vetting process. Well, the vetting process, and he said they were vetted thoroughly. What that really means is they were vetted thoroughly based on what information they had, which in many cases is not any information at all. They really don't have the information to vet these people thoroughly. So, and that causes a concern for a lot of Arkansas citizens, and I'm concerned myself. I would like to know the demographics of this population that we're going to be taking it. Are they families? Are they children? Are they young males between 18 and 34?
That's a good question.
I mean, all you have to do is look at countries like France and Germany and Great Britain and even Sweden, who took in large numbers of refugees now. And now those countries are dealing with no-go zones and places where they've already set up Sharia law. And even in our own country, when you look at our Congress, we have two congresswomen now, Ilhan Omar and Rashid Tlaib, who are calling for flags to be flown at half staff over the death of Soleimani.
God.
And that's just unacceptable. When you have Congress women serving in the United States Congress who will not take the oath of office on the Bible, but rather they take it on the Quran. That's unacceptable to me. And I think it's unacceptable to a lot of people. And the people of Arkansas have a right to know who the people are that are coming into the state. And not only that, there's some other things that people don't understand, because once these refugees arrive, they can disperse and go anywhere in the country.
Yeah.
They're not bound to stay here in Northwest Arkansas. So, there's just a lot of questions that legislators have, I myself have. that I don't think were answered the other day on the Dave Ellsworth show.
Just so you know, I mean, I got some correspondence from the governor's office. I had been saying that these refugees are going to be coming, from Syria or presumably the Middle East. The governor's spokeswoman got back and said, "Hey, look, they're not from Syria. There have been no Syrian refugees settled in Arkansas since governor took office. But then the fact sheet that they sent out to legislators and others did reference Iraq and Afghanistan, and of course that region is somewhat fluid, the way the United States is in terms of travel. So that's not much better. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think, Gary, Senator Stubblefield, that the government's chief responsibility is to make sure that the people are secure in their liberties and safe. And like you said, I mean, this is something that's an option. And we have people coming from a war-torn area where that radical Islamic ideology is prevalent. And if I was somebody wanting to do this country harm, I'm certainly sure I would claim to be a refugee and lie about, a lot of stuff to get where I wanted to get. I mean, all that's perfectly fine for folks in that region generally.
Exactly. Well, Paul, look at the Boston bombers. They came in as refugees. Even Ilhan Omar came in as a refugee. And whenever the President Obama resettled 70,000 Somalis in her 5th district there in Minnesota, that really helped her get elected. And I don't think it's something that people understand that and I don't know if these are Christians that are being persecuted and trying to get out because of that, or if there's, the Islamic Muslims that are embedded in these. I don't know that. But I do know that maybe not 100% of the time, but a lot of the times, the Islamic faith does not coexist well with Christian faith. I mean, that's not a secret. Everybody knows that. And I think we just need to know who these people are. I really do. And at a time in our world where there's so much danger and we're living in such uncertain times, I think it's imperative that we know who these people are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you think you're going to get the answer to that? I mean, what are some of your other colleagues' concerns?
I'm not really sure the governor knows the answer to all these questions. And that's what troubles me, because I'm not sure that information, they're not releasing all that information.
So to play devil's advocate, some might say, listen, it was only 54 last year. It's going to be less than that this year. It's a very small amount. What would you say to that?
Well, I would say that when you multiply that times 50, that number increases. Well, they can take up to 18,000 this year. Trump has lowered that number from the previous administration down to about 18,000. So, that's a small community. And a lot of times those people don't assimilate real well. And in fact, many times they go to places and congregate with other people of their faith.
Yeah.
And they really don't assimilate. I mean, if I were to go to a Muslim country, I'm not going to change my religion in that country.
Right.
I would want to go to, and this is what troubles me, but why, if these are Muslim, why do they not go to some of these rich countries like Saudi Arabia or the Arab Emirates, where they would assimilate much better with people and their cultures are similar and their customs are the same? Why would they not go to those places? The United States is still a Christian nation. I told the governor the other day, we may not be a Christian nation because we're full of Christians, but our country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. And those principles just don't assimilate well with people who believe we're infidels. And like I said, I have a Quran. I've read it.
Well, Senator Gary Stubblefield, first of all, let me say thank you for calling this meeting and trying to get to the bottom of this. I've been telling listeners, listen, it seems like the governor's kind of made up his mind on this. So, if you're going to call someone, call your legislators and let them know that you support them and that we need answers. And I think if this was up to a vote of the people of Arkansas would say, I don't think so. I want to keep our children safe. I don't even want to risk the potential of this being, you know, of us letting bad actors that want to do us harm on a massive scale into the country and into the state of Arkansas. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've heard people bring up, scripture out of the Bible talking about why we should take them to. I think they need to read the Bible as a whole, because in that same Bible it says if you offend one of these little ones that believe in me, it would be better for you to tie a rope around your neck and be cast into the sea. And going back to the no-go zones in Europe, where they have honor killings there regularly, and they have female mutilations, the same things that they do under Sharia law. So I would say that the safety concern outweighs taking 50 refugees that we know very little about.
Well, hopefully we'll get more answers. And again, so it's a week from today in Big Mac A, you say?
It'll be a Big Mac A at 9 o'clock a week from today.
All right. And that presumably that'll be streamed online, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It will be live streamed.
Senator Gary Stubblefield, we appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for your time, and keep up the good work and keep asking questions, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you, Paul.
All righty. Thank you.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate one time or monthly. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
All right, folks, welcome back. As we mentioned earlier, it is primary season, so we're going to highlight one Republican primary out of District 22. Now, this would be the House seat that used to be occupied by former State Representative Mickey Gates. One person vying for that office, his name is Richard Midkiff. He joins us on the line now. Richard, nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks
yes,
for giving me the opportunity to speak.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So let's just take it. I mean, what made you want to run for office, sir?
Well, after doing a career in the military that spans about 35 years and a few more days, I thought it would be good to spend some time here in Arkansas and be part of a positive change that I think needs to happen, especially here in this part of Arkansas in the 22nd district.
So you're running as a Republican.
I am a Republican.
Yeah. So tell us about that. What about the Republican Party? Are you most passionate about?
The platform of the Republican Party, they list 10 principles, the first being faith in God. I grew up with parents who were preachers and missionaries from Arkansas all the way to Costa Rica. That's where my mom was from. She was Costa Rican. The second is pro-life. I'm against abortion. On down a little bit further is the Second Amendment. I think it should be a little bit higher than where it is. But, the first two, faith in God and pro-life, I am a firm believer in the Second Amendment. I don't support any gun-free zones. I work as a field training officer at Garland County Sheriff's Department. I can tell you that the people that we have in jail could care less about gun laws or any other laws. But,
So you're basically talking about like if you're going to break a law, if you're a criminal, you don't mind breaking a law. So these ideas that gun control is going to work, it's just going to hurt law-abiding citizens.
That's all they're going to hurt. These guys could care less about the laws. They're not going to obey the laws. So if you take away guns from law-abiding citizens, then you're just making it easier for these criminals to do their job.
Why do you think, again, we're talking with Richard Midkiff, why do you think so many Arkansans, really over the last decade, started voting for the Republican Party?
Well, I think the left has gone so far away from a lot of the foundations that built this country. You see from being, they want to take away the weapons from law-abiding citizens. You see where the left is pushed for abortion. I'm against abortion. Arkansas has got an issue with taxes. What we got a really big issue here, it's a spending problem. Arkansas is one of the highest tax states in the country, and yet we still seem to get tax measures on the ballot like the 0.5% tax extension that they're proposing here in the fall. We've got a problem here in the state with taxing people from, we have here in Hot Springs Village, here where I live, people up here are paying, we have one of the highest tax rates in the country. I'd like to see that reduced. But I think a lot of people have moved towards the Republican Party because they realize that the Democrat Party has gotten so far away from the values that this country was founded on that they feel that this is the right course to take.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way. And, you just mentioned that we really have a spending problem here in Arkansas. And I think you're not the only one that said that. I've said it. Other, legislators have said that. But there's been a little bit of a disconnect between that principle of the Republican Party. You know what I mean? We don't want to continue to grow government because every time you continue to spend and spend and spend, that is essentially government growing. Why do you think it's been so hard? As we've got super majorities in the legislature, Republican, and yet there's a lot of people that'll say we have a spending problem. Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it is because we get people that are elected that claim to be a Republican that maybe after they get in office, we find out that they're not as Republican or conservative as we thought they were. There are some serious tax issues that I think ought to be tackled. And, there's some like we currently pay the food tax is a 0.125%. That should be gone. We shouldn't pay any tax. Used car sales tax. I never quite understood why that was brought back, during the Clinton administration. But we need to get rid of the used car sales tax. In Arkansas, the military, such as myself, I'm Army Reserve, I don't pay any sales tax. I don't see why we can't extend that to law enforcement. We currently, I don't know why our retired people over 65 should pay property tax. They're retired. Why do we keep taxing people? We now have casinos. We've got medicinal marijuana. We've got all these extra taxes coming in, but yet we continue to tax Arkansans at some of the highest rates in the country. And I don't know why it's happening in Little Rock, but you're right. We have the majority in the House. The governor's a Republican, but yet our taxes are still high. I think we need to get people in Little Rock that are serious about this and that are going to Little Rock to make a change and not a career.
We're talking again with Richard Midkiff. Richard, what branch of the military did you serve?
Well, let me tell you about my military career. I started in 1984. I joined the Navy. I went active duty. I served 13 years active duty. I had the pleasure of holding a flag for President Reagan at the rededication of the Statue of Liberty. I was in the Gulf War. I then, after 13 years, I joined the reserves. I recently got done doing 6 tour of duties with Operation Cold Steel. That was nice. And there I was an instructor showing soldiers how to shoot the big guns off Humvees and other kinds of vehicles. And now I'm back home. I'm still in the reserves, but I'm retiring. And I've had the honor of being able to serve for 35 years. And I think that's enough. So I'll let the young guys have it now.
Wow. That's awesome. Well, first of all, thank you so much for your service. If it wasn't for guys like you, we wouldn't have the freedoms right now we're trying to protect, here domestically. Last question. I would love to get your opinion as a military guy about, I know it's an international issue, but I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about that drone strike on Soleimani and where we go from here? Do you think maybe we're going to fight conflicts to win them now, whereas maybe in the past we weren't? We had these rules of engagement. What are your thoughts on the situation right now, generally?
This is what we have. If we look at the history of America in the past, our enemies such as World War I and World War II, even Vietnam, we had defined enemies, Germany, Japan, Vietnam. Now, here recently, up until recently, what we've had are terrorist groups that operated off of places like Sudan, Yemen, Iran, Iraq. We've seen when they invaded Kuwait. But this is a little different, because if you now have a defined enemy as Iran, this was something that needed to be done. I think it was planned right. It was done right. The left is going to seem like make this play out to be something completely different. The last thing people want, soldiers want, is to go to war. You know, the reason that we have a military is to keep the peace and to protect our country and our national interest. I hope we don't go to war, but I think like everybody else that wears a uniform, if they ask us to step up, we will, and we will get the job done.
Richard,
but it's really hard to say what's going to happen from here.
Oh, it certainly is. Richard Midkiff, first of all, thanks for throwing your hat in the ring, just in terms of it's always good to, put yourself out there and to have this discussion. I'd love to have you on again soon as we get even closer to primary season. And I know there's a lot of people out there, running, and we're trying to interview as many people as we can. Richard, thank you so much, sir. It's great to meet you.
Thank you, sir.